Hi, my name's Jesse. I'm a fiddle player and a fiddle teacher, and I'm making this series of videos for my students and for anyone else who finds it useful, all about how to approach the bowing in fiddle music, especially talking about bowing patterns. So this is the third video in the series, and if you haven't watched the first two videos, I'm going to say some things in this video that may not make sense to you. So go ahead and watch those first two videos if you want. I'll put the link down below in the description. And this is a video about a bowing pattern that I call the chuck. And once again, there's no official word for any of these bowing patterns. It's just my name for it. But the reason I call it the chuck is because a lot of times when guitar players are playing along with fiddle music, they'll be going boom, chuck, boom, chuck, boom, chuck, boom, chuck. And this is it gives a similar sort of feel to the music because you get a really strong emphasis on the offbeat. And that's a really great way to play, to really emphasize the offbeat in your playing, just like a guitar player does when they're boom chucking along with the fiddle tune. It gives the music a real fun drive when the offbeat is really emphasized. So this is what I'm talking about. It's this bowing pattern. Let me count myself in so you feel the downbeat coming in the right place. So 3, 4. So all the notes come on an up bow. You slur a bunch of notes together on an up bow, except for the offbeat comes on a really strong down bow. So here's how we're going to do this as part of this template that we've been working with. Just to get us into it, let's start the very first time we'll play the first two notes on single bows. So start on a down bow on the open D, and an up bow on the E. When you get to the F sharp, pull it really hard because that's the first chuck. Now we're in the bowing pattern. So you pull really hard on that F sharp, and then you're going to slur the next three notes together on an up bow. So those notes are back down to E, D, and E. So here's what we've got so far. You slur those three notes together, and now you're back to an F sharp, and here's your next chuck. Pull it really hard, and you just keep on going like that. So I'm going to do it really slow. 3, 4. So the chuck always comes on the F sharp, and the beat always comes on the open D. And it's super, super important, as I always say, to tap your foot while you're doing this. You're not really getting the benefit of the exercise if you don't tap your foot with it. And it's really easy to start feeling the rhythm as being like, as coming on the chuck. So it can feel like that chuck because it's so strong. You can start hearing the beat there. So it's really important to keep track of the beat coming really on those open Ds so you don't lose track of where it is. The other thing, of course, to watch out for in this is you don't want it to sound like this. Really straight ahead like that. Fiddle music tends to have a little bit of a lilt to it like this. Hopefully you can hear the difference there. The eighth notes just have a little bit of a swing to them. So, practice it slow, keep tapping your foot, speed it up when you can. Spend as much time as you need with it to really feel comfortable with that bowing pattern. I feel like doing it with that little template, just those three notes, can be a really good way to get comfortable with it before you try putting it into a tune. Because you don't have to think about what your left hand is doing. Hopefully you can just your fingers can just do their thing and you can really focus on the bow, focus on your foot tapping. So when you do want to put it into a tune, there's a few tunes that I use this bowing pattern all over the place. Once again, this is a bowing pattern that's good for tunes in 4/2. It's not for jigs or waltzes, but any old-time fiddle tune or Irish reel, this is a great bowing pattern. I use it all over the place. A really good tune to practice it in is Whiskey Before Breakfast, and it's especially good, and it's all over the tune. Let me just play you an A part and a B part maybe. So you can see you're using that bowing pattern all over the place, but that last phrase in the B part is really, it's good to kind of isolate that phrase, and you can just practice that last phrase. I'm talking about this part right here. Really good for practicing that chuck bowing, because a lot of the times when you change bow direction, you're also changing strings. So the way to do that is, let's start on this high D, third finger on the A string, and you're going to want to start on an up bow. You'll be in the middle of an up bow slur when you get to that note. And then when you change to the E string, you're going to play that F sharp on a down bow. That's a chuck. And then slur on an up bow the next two notes. And when you change to the E string, you're again switching bow directions to chuck. You don't get a string change for that last chuck. When you switch to the D string, you're going to land on an F sharp. You're going to land right on a chuck on that F sharp. Start the next up bow on that same F sharp and slur from there into the G. So, and then the whole second half of that phrase is exactly the same. It's just one string down. I'm going to do that phrase again really slow. So that's a really good tune for practicing that chuck bowing pattern, and hopefully you could hear as I was playing that, I was tapping my foot. So very important, tap your foot while you play that tune. Another really great tune for practicing chuck bowing is a Shetland tune called The New Rigged Ship. It goes like this if you haven't heard it. It's a three-part tune. Look it up and learn it if you don't know it already, because it's a wonderful tune. It's worth learning. Once again, if you were performing this tune or playing it for a dance, maybe you would do a more varied bowing. You would go in and out of a bunch of different bowing patterns. But you can play pretty much the entire tune just for practice, just as an exercise. You can play pretty much the entire tune with this chuck bowing pattern. I think that's what I did in the A part just now. There's one place in the B part where you have to break the pattern because there's a string crossing, and I'll show you where it is. If you tried to slur into that low E note, then you'd have to slur across strings. It would feel really awkward. So I like to do some single bows there. So like this. So you'll be on a down bow when you get to that low E note, and then when you play the next note, you're definitely going to be on an up bow there. If you tried to do two down bows in a row, you just wind up with an awkward hiccup in your playing. So start the next piece on an up bow, and now you're not in the chuck bowing pattern. But if you slur those two notes together, you can get back into it. And what this is you play just a little chunk of that shuffle bowing pattern that I was talking about in the previous video. And that's one thing that's really useful about that shuffle pattern, is you can use it if you have to break out of this chuck bowing pattern. You can shuffle just a little bit, and it'll get you right back into the chuck bowing pattern. So you're on an up bow here on this open E, shuffle, slur, chuck. And then for the whole rest of the B part, you're back in the chuck bowing pattern. And this tune also has a C part, and you can chuck all the way through the C part. One more tune that's great for practicing this chuck bowing pattern. If you know the Tap Room, it's an Irish reel, goes like this. And you can look up the dots to that or look up recordings of it if you want to learn it, if you don't know it already. It's a fun tune, and it's really good for practicing that chuck bowing pattern. One thing about it is it's really good for practicing getting in and out of the pattern. There's places where you definitely have to switch to single bows, such as like there's this really distinctive ending phrase. You'll want to do all single bows there, and make sure that you start it on an up bow, because it starts on a little pickup note. You can hear I'm tapping on the beats there. And when you get here, hopefully when you do those single bows, if you've got a really nice lilt in your playing, then you're getting closer and closer to the tip of your bow, and that slur that you get to feels like a big relief. Because it feels like, oh my goodness, I'm going to fall off the tip of my bow. Oh, thank heavens, I slur back into the middle of my bow, and then you're back in that chuck bowing pattern. So the whole point of this chuck bowing pattern is you don't want to play it like this. Making every note the same volume, because then it'll get you closer and closer to the frog of your bow. So the whole point is to pull the chuck really hard, really yank on it so that you get back into the middle of the bow. I hope this video is useful to you if you are practicing bowing patterns. I hope it gives you something to think about, gives you something to work on. Leave me a comment if you have any questions or if you've got things to say, and I'll try to read the comments and reply to you if you've got questions that I can answer. And in the meantime, good luck.